listeners. Welcome, welcome. Welcome to the Talk It Up radio show. It's great to be back with you again one more time today. And we have some very special guests with us today. Today we're talking about a very important topic, domestic abuse. So we're really excited about that. We have with us in the studio Heather Wilkie. She's the Chief Operating Officer of Harbor House of Central Florida. She holds a master's degree in mental health counseling from Rollins and a bachelor's degree in psychology and sociology from the University of North Carolina in Asheville. She's been with Harbor House for 10 years, serving as an AmeriCorps volunteers for 1 year, an advocate in the courthouse program, and as a legal service manager for 4 years. Now, we're really excited about the show. We also have Evelyn Herrera Jackson. She's the director of the Outreach Services for Help Now in Osceola County. And we also have Evelyn Jackson she's been doing it for 16 years. She has a master's in counseling from the State University of New York, Brockport, New York. And we also have Shireen and Sherelle, who are from Legal Shield. So they'll be telling you a little more about that. All right, so let's get started with the show. And we have Heather Wilkie, first of all. Welcome, Heather. Welcome, Evelyn.
Welcome.
Shireen and Sherelle, welcome.
Thank
you.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for coming. Okay, all right. So what we're going to talk about the domestic violence we want to find out what exactly is domestic violence. So can you explain that to us? What is domestic violence?
Sure. In a nutshell, the easiest way to explain it, I think if you're talking about domestic abuse, really you have to think of two words, which is power and control. It's really one person maintaining power and control over another person. Most of the time that's within the context of a family unit when you're talking about domestic abuse.
All right. So you just explain what is domestic violence and who is affected by the domestic abuse.
Well, pretty much the whole family. When you talk about the family unit that's experiencing the intimate partner violence, but you're also looking at even family and friends, and it even spills over to work, school, and all other partners of the community.
Mm-hmm. Sure. And how is our community impacted by all this?
In a great way. We are seeing, at Harbor House, we see over 8,500 cases per year. In the courthouse program, for example, we're seeing almost 400 domestic violence injunctions filed per month. So it really does affect our community. We know that the rates of domestic violence are some of the highest in our Tri-County area, which is Osceola County, Seminole County, and Orange County across the state.
Mm-hmm.
And in other areas that it impacts the community is also in the workplace. A lot of victims are not going to work because of the bruises or even the maltreatment that they're receiving at home. Mm-hmm. Also, the emergency rooms. Numbers are in the millions in terms of treating women that have been victimized and physically injured because of the domestic abuse.
Sure. Now, can you explain to us, because this is something that a lot of people probably have this question, why do people stay in an abusive relationship?
Well, there are many factors as to why someone would stay. Number one being safety. A lot of times people are afraid. When you're in an abusive relationship, you may be afraid to leave your partner for fear that they will kill you or harm you or harm your children because you've heard for so long over the period of time that they will do that. But also you have to think of other factors that may come into play, religious reasons, financial reasons. One of the main reasons someone stays is that they don't have the economic resources to move forward in their lives. Maybe a lack of education, any sort of lack of family resources and support. You really need a lot of support when you're leaving an abusive relationship, particularly if you have children in common, if you have property in common, if you're married. Mm-hmm. So all of those factors create barriers.
Sure. Now, when there's children involved, tell us, how does domestic violence affect the children?
In many ways. We have, I think the stats nationally is 10 million children a year witness domestic violence. Mm-hmm. And clearly, children are learning from their parents in terms of how to relate to the family partners. And unfortunately, the things that they learn are not as necessarily healthy. So unfortunately, the children internalize a lot of that. So there may be a change in grades. But there's evidence even from the womb that the children may be colicky at birth, or even in daycare, some of them may not be able to socialize well. There may be some developmental delays.
Right.
Even socially, choosing their friends can be an issue, or even they turn to drugs and alcohols, trying to cope with the violence that they observe.
Right. That's so sad. And what role does the law enforcement play in all of this?
Well, law enforcement, a lot of times when you have an altercation between two people, law enforcement will be the first people who will be on site. So you're going to call 911, they're going to come to the scene, and they really have the opportunity there on the scene to help that person, whether it's being able to connect them with domestic violence centers or to be able to assist them through the criminal justice system. Whether or not that arrest is made on site is critical in terms of the person's safety and whether or not the prosecution is going to happen and be followed through.
Great. So there's a lot of help, so there's no need for people to be fearful of reaching out to law enforcement. That's great. Now tell us what resources are available to help survivors.
Well,
one of you address that?
Yes. Well, the state of Florida has 42 certified domestic violence agencies that they provide shelter for victims that are in imminent danger. They provide outreach services for those that are confused about what's going on at home and have questions that they want to ask. And at the outreach offices as well as the shelters, they get individual counseling, group support, even educational classes, so we could teach them about the dynamics of domestic violence. And in almost all of the centers provide services for children, because we know they are impacted by the violence that they observe, and they're the invisible victims, secondary victims of the abuse.
Great. And so tell our listeners, if they know of someone who is being abused, how can they help?
It's very important that they provide the support. If someone shares with you that they are victimized, please try not to judge them. Validate what they're telling you. Believing a survivor is extremely important. Many times an abuser will show one face in public and another face in private. So sometimes telling somebody that they're being abused it's unbelievable to the average friend or associate. So it's important that you believe the survivor, be supportive, and validate what they're saying. Anything else?
And really know the resources also. We have every county in the state of Florida has a center. Evelyn here is with Help Now of Osceola County, and then Harbor House does also, 24/7. You can call and speak to an advocate. You can call on behalf of someone if you have questions, just to advocate for them. And we are also, we have a kennel on site. We're one of 4 centers in the state of Florida that has a kennel. So if you need to leave and go into shelter, we would also be able to house your pets. And also, you can link up with an app. We have an app called the R3 app. It's called Recognize, Respond, and Refer is what that stands for.
Wow.
And you can enter in your zip code into that app and link a survivor with the resource right there. So no matter where you are in the country or even internationally, you'll be able to link them up with that resource to get some help.
That's awesome. Now, what efforts are being done to stop domestic abuse?
There are a lot of things going on. Every center has been given the challenge to, we all educate the community, and that's important. Knowledge is power, and we try to educate the community in terms of the warning signs of domestic violence, the effects of domestic violence on the family as well as the children, but most importantly, the centers itself. Having a safe place to go that you can get a safety plan and feel secure is important. I think a lot of the other things are we have community action teams, because we know that domestic violence affects the community a lot at large. So it's important to have community partners involved so that they too can see the warning signs and become upstanders as opposed to bystanders when they see abuse.
Right. Great. Now, on a whole, how can everyone get involved in this effort? Because you can't do it alone. You do need people to help out. So just tell us, how can everyone help?
So beyond providing resources for survivors who may be abused, you yourself can also get involved in many opportunities. At Harbor House, we have a large volunteer program where you can come and provide services for survivors directly or indirectly, and also for our animal survivors of abuse. We have opportunities all over the agency in that way. You can also do a donation drive. If you are linked with a church or an organization, a school, we have opportunities where we can do canned goods drives, cell phone drives, lots of different ways that you can get involved in that way to provide services and goods for our survivors.
Great, great, great. Now, do you want to tell everyone a little bit more about, for instance, if there's someone listening and they really want to get out, what's the first thing that they should do?
Definitely make sure that they don't just announce that they're leaving,
Right.
because usually that's the most dangerous time that a victim faces when she announces that she is leaving. We know that preparing to leave is most important. So get with an advocate from what certified domestic violence agency and start preparing a safety plan so that that exit can be safe. The other things is to make sure that that everyone in the family is aware that escape is actually happening.
You know, we have individualized safety plans that we offer through the toll-free number, which I'm pretty sure we're going to announce that number, and also on our website. HarborHouseFL.com is the Harbor House website, and you can find any resources on there. So please make sure that you get an individualized safety plan. It's really important.
Yes. And, you know, one of the things to look into is that if you're not sure if your relationship is unhealthy, because everyone sees the physical abuse as the immediate acknowledgement of somebody's being victimized, there are so many factors on how someone can be abused. We look at isolation, wherein the abuser controls where you go, who do you see, what you can read. And there's controlling even the partner with the children, using the children as ping pongs in terms of relaying secondary messages, or even making the partner feel bad if she's ready to leave, that you're breaking up a home. But if there's always, and you can, any of the certified domestic violence centers, there's always a live advocate available. So there are 24-hour live advocate hotlines throughout the state. So we have a national number that you can call, and that number can patch you to the closest shelter from where you're calling from. The number is 1-800-500-1119. I'll repeat that. That's 1-800-500-1119. Please, if you feel that you are in an unhealthy relationship, just call. Speak to somebody about it so that they can help you sort it out or identify if there are red flags do exist.
Great, great. Now, this is alarming, but it takes 7 times for an abuser to the person getting abused. They leave and go back 7 times before they finally get it. Why is this? Can you explain a little bit about that?
Well, you know, we say that's on average, that a person may go back to the relationship 7 times. And going back, that may mean picking up the phone and calling an advocate. That's one time that they've reached out for help. Maybe the second time they've reached out for help is through law enforcement. But certainly we know that leaving is not just one step, it's a process.
Yes.
You don't just walk out of the door, you know, from a relationship. It's not that easy. It takes a lot of different processes and a lot of resources. And knowing that, you know, abuse is not just physical. Abuse goes way beyond that. And so it's important that if you have any warning signs, or if you know someone who may have any of those red flags, that you're reaching out to get some help. And that you're linking them with those resources.
Right. Absolutely. So how would you explain to someone, for instance, if someone is in Volusia County and they want to move across a couple counties just to be further away from the situation, there are other shelters that are around.
Absolutely.
Right.
And we do work together. So a lot of times it's for your safety that you can't be in that county, you know, and if that's the case, then we would certainly work with our sister centers to link them up with those shelters in other counties.
Right, right. Well, you guys are doing an amazing job. I do want to commend you. It's really helping not just people who are getting abused, but it's also helping the children and the community as a whole, because this does affect the entire community. So I really want to commend you on that. Would you like to share anything else special about Harbor House or, Help Now?
Well, I would just say that if you're interested in getting involved, please go to our website. We have a lot of different opportunities and different events throughout the year, so I encourage you to get involved.
And similar does Help Now. Our website is at helpnowshelter.org. So, and we have very similar values and goals. But if you're interested in helping and making a difference, please, I encourage you to join a task force in your county, or get involved in a community action team, or come and volunteer at one of the domestic abuse centers.
Great. And would you want to say the 800 number again for us?
It's 1-800-500-1119.
Great. So reach out. Anyone's listening here today and you're affected by this, don't be afraid to reach out. And for those who know of someone who is involved in this, then you do want to, reach out to them to get some help. And for those who are the abusers, do get some help, because a lot of time when you abuse people, you tend to think they're the ones that make you do it, but it's really you needing the help. So please reach out and get help. Back in just a minute. Okay, so thank you. Welcome back. We have with us in the studios Cheryl Petgrave Mohammed and Shireen Petgrave, who are both with Legal Shield. And now that we've talked about domestic abuse, you might be wondering, how you can get some legal help. They're going to explain all of that in addition to all the other stuff that is offered through their services. So go ahead, ladies. Welcome to the show.
Yes, hello everyone. Well, again, my name is Cheryl Mohammed, and I am with Legal Shield. And, just imagine if you and your spouse should die and that you do have minor children. In the state of Florida, it's a probate state, but a lot of states really, once the parents die, the minor children become property of the state. And it will take the court some time to really find a family member to place those children with. So just imagine the trauma that your minor children may be going through, because, of course, in the meantime, they may be placed in a foster home and things like that. And of course, it could be very traumatic to live with strangers. Well, Legal Shield actually will provide you peace of mind today. It really is your lucky day, because we provide legal services, and we do it across North America and also in Canada. Some of the services that we do provide is a will, because if you do have a will in place, then of course when you do die, the court will go ahead and execute your will. So for getting a membership, Legal Shield provides you with a will, but not just that, they also cover you for any legal situation that you may have with family matters. We just heard the wonderful ladies here talked about abusive relationships and being a victim of domestic violence. And it is great to know that there's so many help out there available. But also a lot of people, when they have legal situations, they turn to families and friends or, help sources such as legal homes. But, they don't know who to call. And in the state of Florida, a legal service is on average is about $250 per hour. So a lot of situations may just get resolved elsewhere. So we do cover family members situations such as divorce, child custody. We also cover auto services such as motor vehicle services. And we cover any issues that you may have with the IRS. Now, the IRS is actually the most expensive lawyer. And we do have situations with that where we do cover that for you. So we do give you advice. We do get unlimited advice on any matter that you may have. We also write letters and phone calls on your behalf. And we also review contracts and documents. And we do also provide you with trial defense. Now, they always say who is suing who in America. It's pretty much a very litigious society. So we provide you with trial defense, as well as I mentioned before, we do provide you with that standard will. Not just your will, but we also do living will and healthcare power of attorney as well. So that is the service that we cover.
Okay. All right. And how long have you been doing it, Cheryl? How long have you been in?
About 2 years now.
Mhm.
Actually, my husband and I do the business from home, and my sister that is beside me here actually started about a year ago, or a little bit over.
8 months. 8 months ago.
Great. And how have you seen Legal Shield help someone? For instance, I know of someone who they have some mental issues, and they applied for disability and they were denied. So how would Legal Shield be able to help someone like that?
Well, first of all, as I mentioned, Legal Shield will be able to provide legal advice. And we do have a network of lawyers, so it's not just in one particular area. We work with a law firm throughout the states. There are different law firms. So what will happen is someone would be a member, and they would actually call in. They'll have a member number. They'll call in, and they'll just share briefly what their situation is. For example, in that situation, they will just say, disability questions or disability issues, and they would find the lawyer that specializes in that area to call them back.
Right.
When that lawyer calls back, then that person can go ahead and explain exactly what their situation is, and that lawyer will be able to give them unlimited advice, however long it will take. And I cannot go into, I don't know what the legal issue would be, but, they would have that specialist to advise them. If just advising them maybe to make a phone call or what they need to say, if they're going towards, any agencies or so, if that suffice, then that would be fine. But if they need, letters written on their behalf or even to make a phone call, the lawyer will do that as well.
Right. And tell our listeners, how can they actually sign up for Legal Shield? How if they want to get your services, what do they need to do?
Well, to get our services, pretty much we are independent associates. So, of course, we would love for them to call us. And I can provide you with our numbers, but also we do have a webpage that they can check out as well, which is LegalShield.com. So they can certainly take a look at LegalShield.com. And we're going to provide our phone numbers. They can certainly call us. My phone number is 407-962-9625.
And this is Shireen. My phone number is 407-810-1970. Another great thing that we do as well is identity theft. And that is actually the number one crime almost in America now.
Sure.
In Florida, Florida is the number one state for identity theft, and your identity is personal, and we try to keep it that way. We partnership with a company called Kroll, and Kroll is a company that did Enron and the Kuwaiti money and stuff like that. They're CIA, ex workers, and they're specifically for Legal Shield. The thing that sets us apart from a lot of time people think that identity theft is just with their bank account, but it's so much bigger. Now we've got people that is working with your Social Security. If you're not aware of that, and that's happened, and they don't pay taxes, the IRS will send someone after you, and that now becomes a legal issue. The same thing with medical. A lot of people are using, selling your medical records nowadays, and that's a big issue, because just imagine you go to the hospital and you're a type A blood, and someone had stole your identity and they're a type B blood. Now in the emergency room, that can hold up the process because they're showing two different blood type showing up for you. So it's a very, very serious situation, and we love to educate the community and educate the people that identity theft has. The bank account is the last thing that you want to even be concerned about. People are doing criminal activity by using your driver's license, and if the cop pull you over for your taillight being out, but then run your license and realize that you've committed a crime somewhere else, you cannot say to that officer, that's not me. That's going to be a legal issue now that you're going to need an attorney to help you with. So you definitely want to, we make sure that your information is monitored. That's for one. But the thing that separates us apart from other companies that we do restoration, which means that if you should become a victim, Legal Shield and Kroll will go to work for you. You'll sign over a power of attorney, and they will go ahead on your behalf. Because let's face it, if you become a victim and you're working 9 to 5 and you have to call the government places, those places also work 9 to 5. So you'd have to take hours off from work just to, and you'll have a book that they'll send you for you to fix your credit. Just imagine trying to tell the IRS that this was not me who got, a job in Arizona, or try to tell, Chase Bank that car that they purchased is not them. That's a lot of time, and we already know how hard it is to call through the customer service just by saying, hey, my phone bill is wrong, when it's me. So just imagine when something is not you. So it's critical. The power of attorney gives the representative the right to go in as you, so you can continue with your life. You can continue to go to work, do what it is that you do, while someone going as you, and make sure that everything is restored back to how it was before you were become a victim.
Sure.
Our product, the prices is phenomenal. We've got anywhere from $17 per month up to about $45 per month. And that covers you, your spouse, children, if you have 10, no matter how much you have, up to the age of 23 if they're full-time in college. 21 if they're at home, and any mentally disabled children for life. If they're mentally, like handicapped and they're home and that's your responsibility, they're covered for life. So between $17 and $45, it's incredible that you could have a V-rated attorney at your beck and call to, like she said before, make a phone call, write a letter, review documents and contracts, and just give you unlimited advice. Sometimes you just able to pick up the phone and just want to know what your rights are. Sure. Because just like the ladies were saying before, that people have domestic, sometimes you might have children together or marriage together, and you just want to know, if I'm in the home, can he still pay child support? Can he, so those rights you can still call in. So I think the advocate today, the panel, is extremely important, and it's just a complete package around an individual to make sure that they're taken care of.
Yes, absolutely. Now, how does someone contact you if they want to get more information?
My website is Shireen12.legalshieldassociate.com, and Shireen is spelled Sherine, as well as my website. My email is Shireen Petgrave, SHERINE PETGRAVE @yahoo.com. And again, like my sister said, the phone number is 407-810-1970.
Great. All right. Well, you've been very helpful and shed a lot of light on your information, what you offer. So thank you so much for being here today. Now, if for our listeners, welcome back. Now, the lines are open. If you'd like to call in to speak to Harbor House or Help Now, please feel free to do so. Or if you want to call and ask any question for a Legal Shield representative, the number is 407-894-1680. Again, 407-894-1680. And we're back with our Arbor House and Help Now representatives, and you have some more information that you want to share with us?
Sure. I just kind of wanted to walk someone through the process of what happens when someone comes into shelter. I think there's a lot of myths surrounding a domestic abuse shelter, and so typically what happens is when someone calls our 24-hour hotline, they may or may not be calling to reach out for help in order to get shelter. But if they do need shelter, our confidential location is in the community, but of course we don't announce exactly where that is. We are protected by law. So when someone comes in, we will meet them in an undisclosed location, and they may come in with their pets. They may come in with their children. The average stay in our shelter is about 8 weeks. And we do link them up with resources pretty immediately when they come in to make sure that they have their basic needs met. We'll make sure that they have food to eat, clothing on their backs, and food for the kids and clothing for the kids. And then the children can get linked up immediately with a child advocate. So we make sure that the children are bused to school the next day if they are school-aged children. And we do have child care during the week. So if someone comes in and needs that assistance, they're able to have that assistance fairly immediately. And so it is an excellent resource. We try to make sure that when they leave our shelter that we're able to link them up with housing resources in the community. So just kind of wanted to talk about that a little bit.
Okay, and Help Now doesn't have a kennel on property. As she mentioned earlier, only 4 shelters throughout the state do have kennels. However, we have a wonderful relationship with our Humane Society, and what they do is they reach out to the community and the pets because one of the reasons why women don't leave is because of their pets. They don't want to leave their pets behind because the abuser has already made threats that they're going to harm the pets. So we know how important that is. So we have partnered with animal shelters, and what they do is they seek out foster parents for a short term while the resident is in shelter to foster the animals.
So the most important thing that we want to emphasize is the safety component of a shelter. Domestic violence shelter is different from a homeless shelter because we are protected by law, and we do have that safety network. So we are monitored, we have security systems, and we have really linkages to law enforcement, so they are aware of anything that can happen in our shelter. We call them, and they're able to respond fairly quickly. But really the safety part of it is critical when you're in a domestic violence relationship.
And the other component that's very fundamental in all the centers is confidentiality. When you come into our shelter, anything that you share with us is and will remain confidential. There's only 4 instances that we can breach confidentiality. That's if a child has been harmed, if you say that you're going to harm yourself or harm someone else, or in the case of an emergency that we have to disclose your name to, let's say, a paramedic or a fire emergency, and the other ones would be funding related. But other than that, anything you share with our staff is maintained confidential, as the site is. Not everybody is eligible for shelter services. The shelter is there because your life is in danger and you're needing help. We recognize that the statutory definition of domestic violence is any violence that happens in the home, and that's between siblings, grandma and grandchild. But most of the centers in the state of Florida really focus on intimate partner violence. That's different. That's because these 2 individuals have a relationship, and because of that relationship, it's unhealthy and someone fears for their life. So that's the purpose of the shelter. We know that a lot of victims, because of decisions that they choose to make to keep their family safe, end up homeless because of that. So we recognize that those coming into shelter are now considered also homeless, part of the homeless population. So there's a lot of programs in place that each center does have in order to help the survivor become self-sufficient. And that's extremely important.
Definitely. And even if someone is not interested or ready for shelter, because not everyone is, and they may not be in that point in their relationship when they're ready to leave, it is important to know that these domestic violence centers, we also have other resources. The majority of the people we see are actually not in our shelter program. It's out in the community. We have 13 different locations at Harbor House in the community, so we are able to meet with someone. We have multiple languages that our advocates speak, and so we're able to set up an appointment immediately to make sure that they're seen within 24 hours, depending on whether or not it's over the weekend. We try to make that initial appointment happen, though, within 24 hours.
And if you should happen to need any court assistance for an order for protection or any divorce proceedings, clearly both centers have court advocates that can assist you. You're not alone in this process. The court advocacy program assists the survivor in actually even in helping fill out the statement that's needed, so that the judge, when they read the injunction, they can clearly see that the violence is imminent, and that we can begin with a process of a legal proceeding against the abuser.
And Evelyn, since you're speaking of the legal issues regarding domestic abuse, we have injunctions in place. In the state of Florida, a lot of different states have legal protections called restraining orders, but in Florida it's called an injunction, and you're able to obtain one of those free of charge if you go to the courthouse. In Osceola County, there's Help Now there, and in Orange County we have Harbor House located at the courthouse. After hours, though, if you're not able to go to the courthouse between 9 and 5, then we do have an after-hours injunction process. All of our advocates are deputized, and we have the ability to file that emergency injunction over the weekend and in the evenings when a lot of the cases are actually happening.
And I know that in Osceola County, our advocates are not deputized. However, the shelter's hotline is the screening process, and we have a direct line to a county clerk that can begin the process of the injunction after hours and in weekends.
An injunction is very critical in a lot of different cases because it can help protect you by paper, and it allows law enforcement to serve that paperwork. So it does provide that protection in that way legally.
And Heather just said something that's very crucial. The injunction, the order for protection, restraining order, whichever way you want to call it, is a paper. If your partner, your abuser, does not respect law enforcement or does not respect the courthouse, then an injunction is not a way to go. I think one of the things that you need to consider, and that's why it's important for you to speak to an advocate so they can share with you all the pros and cons. If you're not legally married to your partner and you have children in common, an injunction can exercise parental visitation for the abuser and keep you within a restricted area so that your partner can exercise their parental rights. I don't want to go too much into that, but it's important for you to know that that the injunction is a piece of paper, and if the abuser does not respect the law, that piece of paper is not going to protect you. Maybe a shelter is something for you to consider.
Now, I have a question here. Is there any cost involved if someone wants to go get help from you? Is there any cost involved?
No, we do not charge fees. We are a nonprofit organization. We do not charge fees for any of our services.
All our services are free. And believe it or not, the advocate at any one of the facilities takes it one step even beyond. That if there's a service or a resource that you are in need of, we'll try to minimize the expenses. With respect to Legal Shield, there are some community legal aid of Orlando, as well in Osceola County. There's community legal services that do provide legal representation for victims of trying to obtain orders for protection.
That's right. You may be eligible for additional services beyond what Harbor House can provide to be able to help you relocate. For example, there is a relocation assistance process through the Attorney General's office, so you may be able to get additional resources beyond what we're able to offer, and what our advocates can do is link you up with those resources.
Great. Now, we have about 8 minutes left, but I wanted to ask you this very important question. Can someone actually be abused and not know that they're being abused?
For sure.
Or what are the warning signs that, because with different cultures, it's okay to do some things.
Sure.
And, it's not legal, so they're not lawfully allowed to do that. So
what we had said earlier was that it does go way beyond physical abuse. So we know that there may be verbal abuse that can involve jealousy, that can involve stalking. If you want to talk about all of the ways in which people can stalk another person, it can be putting someone down, calling them names over and over again. To the point of isolating someone from their friends and their family so they can't reach out for help.
And there's sexual abuse as well. Some people feel as though because of they're legally married to their partner, that they have to succumb to sexual advances. When you say no, that's considered rape, and it is against the law in the state of Florida and in the United States. Sure. So one of the things that the abuser also does is manipulate with the children, uses the children as a hold on or something to hold on. And sometimes because of cultural reasons, we stay in relationships because it's the right thing to do. But if you think about it, if your partner is abusing you, the kids are observing that, and staying in that relationship is just teaching them to normalize violence. And unfortunately, today and age, a lot of our kids growing up today are desensitized to violence, and it's they see it as normal. So we have our job work out for us in terms of preventing, because I do believe that domestic violence is preventable. And the important thing is that the community is aware of those warning signs and know that any violence is not acceptable. There's no excuse for abuse.
Sure.
Right. Because what happens when there's children involved is a lot of times the children will pick up on that behavior. And we do a lot of education in the community, particularly as it relates to teen dating violence. We have a lot of different educational programs in schools here in the county, in Orange County, to teach about healthy relationships from a young age, because it's critical for people, especially our youth, to understand what is healthy and what is unhealthy from a very young age.
And, if we teach them early on that strong gender roles is a red flag in a relationship, and if we teach them that they should expect respect, and in Osceola we have the Expect Respect program, all the centers have a goal in terms of prevention, teaching those signs so that we can avoid from being in an unhealthy situation.
All right. Now, a caller was trying to call in, but unfortunately the line's not working. So she had a question for you. If there's illegal immigrants and domestic violence is involved, should they be afraid to come forward to get help?
Not at all. I think that it's really important, and in particular those that are undocumented, that it's important to know that the law is the law and it protects everybody. So do not be afraid to call law enforcement. I think that's one of the things that an abusive individual throws at someone, saying, if you call the kids, you're going to be deported. If you call, the children are going to be placed in care. That is not true. Just call, because services are available for you. And there are maybe even legal remedies to help you to actually become a citizen and protect you, because you've been a crime has been held against you.
All right, so let's just wrap this up now. For those, unfortunately, people were trying to call in and couldn't call. So just go ahead and give again the 800 number and also website information from the four ladies in the audience, in the studio.
The 1-800 number is 1-800-500-1119. That's 1-800-500-1119. We also have a website at Harbor House. It's www.harborhouse, that's HARBORHOUSEFL, as in Florida.com.
And for help now, the 1-800 number is the same, because it's a statewide number. But our website is helpnowshelter.org. That's HELPNOWSHELTER.org.
And this is Shireen with Legal Shield, 407-810-1970.
And this is Sherelle Mohammed, and with Legal Shield, that web address is legalshield.com. You definitely want to check that out, legalshield.com. A lot of information is available there. My phone number is 407-962-9625. Appreciate it.
And I want to thank everyone for coming to our studios and participating in this very, very interesting discussion.
Thank you.
And you have a safe ride home. We have DJ's Countryman ready to wait. He's ready to go. All his equipment is set up. Genius is here also. And my name is Noel. We're going to see you next week. And my wife is Beverly Martin. And we're going to leave the show with a song by Pray.